Peace and welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let me bring up the date on what's happening with some of former President Donald Trump's big cases. One, how the judge in his election interference case down in Georgia has cleared the way of some people because now he's allowing the former president to make an appeal about his decision. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, former President Trump and his now request to ask the Supreme Court for absolute immunity. Can you believe that? We'll talk a little bit about that. Later on, we'll check in and discuss Governor Ron DeSantis and his immigration plan for Haitians, where he said he doesn't want them to come to Florida. He's going to send them to Martha's Vineyard. Wow. And later, Beyonce speaks on her Instagram as she shares her motivation and inspiration about her new album, Act 2, Cowboy Carter. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Wednesday, folks. It is Wednesday, March the 20th. Wow. March has just been flying by, but happy Wednesday, and thank you so much for tuning in and getting ready to join us in the conversation. Folks, we got to tell you where we are so you can tell your family and friends about us as we are broadcasting live right now. But we're streaming on our home network first, the Black Star Network. Check us out on our website at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free on all of your devices, on Apple products or your any type of Android products. You can download us for free on those devices. And you can also find us on social media at Black Star Network. Make sure you follow us there. And we also invite you to be an investor, a stakeholder in this digital movement we are embarked upon. So make sure that you drop a little something in the bucket. And for all of you who have already put something in the bucket, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times already, we cannot thank you enough for your support because every dollar, every cent matters. So please support us here at Black Star Network at blackstarnetwork.com. We're also streaming, folks, on Amazon platforms. You can check us out on Amazon News, on your Prime, on Amazon Fire TV. You can also follow us on Amazon Prime. You can see us on the Amazon Prime Video under Live TV, the news, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, the news. We're also on Freevee, that great network. You can find us on now under News for Black Star Network, as well as Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network. You'll find us on the Live TV, the news, and opinion. And folks, we are also streaming on Big Brother Roland Martin's social media pages. We're streaming on his Facebook page, as well as on his YouTube channel. And big shout out to the Online Culture crew on all of those spaces and on the X platform as well. So big shout out to the Online Culture crew, all of you who's checking in, wanting to be a part of the conversation. We thank you. And I look forward to hearing from so many of you. And I see who's in the chat right now on his Brother Roland Martin's YouTube channel. I see you, Francesca Epps, Mingley, Natasha Surge, Tiana, I see you. Sophus Inventions, I see you. Brian Christian, I see you. Who else we got? Pretty Brown Mimi, 726. Deidre Hall, Pastor Damon Blissett, thank you so much. Pauline Hurt, thank you so much for checking in. Who else we got here? Tiana, I see you. Who else? Nicole Smith, I see you. We got Shanna Marsh. Shanna, thank you so much for checking in. Shanna's one of our new Culture crew members. So Shanna, thank you so much. Who else? Lori Parks, I see you. Clutch and Stick, I got you. Oh, man, all of y'all are checking in. So y'all ready for a dynamic set of conversations that we got planned for you today. Now, folks, it's Wednesday. And you know, every Wednesday, I got to check in with my sister from another mother. She's doing some dynamic work in South Florida, making things happen politically, connecting folks, networking with folks, making folks stay engaged in the process. It's my sister, Suzette Speaks. She's the host of the Suzette Speaks Show on YouTube. She's also one of our great political and legal contributors here on The Culture and on the Black Star Network, as well as, of course, on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Suzette, happy anniversary. Happy Wednesday.
You make a lady feel welcome. Thank you, Farajii.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm just excited about our Wednesday conversation. So very good to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk. Let's talk a little bit here and get the ball rolling before we take our first pause. Suzette, let's talk about your favorite president. First, there are two big things, and this is why I enjoy having you on the show, because you can break it down like no other, talking about some of these big legal issues, especially now where we need this type of insight coming from you. First, let's talk about the big news coming out of the state of Georgia, where Judge Scott McAfee has decided to clear the way, as some would say, for former President Trump to appeal the decision that was made in his election interference case that our sister DA Fani Willis had prosecuted and prosecuted. Let me just share the latest from AP News around this situation. Take a look at this, folks. Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee's ruling means defense attorneys can ask the Georgia Court of Appeals to review the judge's decision not to disqualify Willis or dismiss the indictment over her romantic relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. It will be up to the appeals court to decide whether to hear the matter. The judge said he would continue working to get the case ready for trial by addressing other matters in the meantime. So he sounds pretty confident that he made the right decision. He did the right thing. He took folks through those days of going deep and diving in her personal relationship with Nathan Wade. He's like, look, I'm on to something else, but you can still appeal all you want to. Appeal to your heart's desire. How does this affect the case against the former president? How does this affect the case against that DA Fani Willis is trying to put together against Trump?
I think we're hard up on a break, so I'll do the short version first. So remember that Judge McAfee, who has been putting in overtime hours clearly on this case, is ruling that he rendered last week on a hearing on whether or not District Attorney Fani Willis should be disqualified because of a relationship that was since disclosed with former prosecutor Nathan Wade. The judge found that there was no conflict of interest. However, there was an appearance of impropriety. Therefore, he gave DA Willis the choice whether she or he would resign. One had to leave the case. He resigned expeditiously Friday, and so she has chosen, therefore, to remain on the case. So a lot has to do with now the timing of what may take place with this now appeal. The Judge McAfee had to rule whether or not he would allow an appeal, and he ruled that all parties have the opportunity now to appeal. So this is going to affect timing, and I'll kind of get into it in a little bit more detail after the break.
Absolutely. Let's do that. Let's take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's go and take a deep dive into this situation, this latest development in the case against former President Donald Trump in the state of Georgia. And of course, we're going to hear from Suzette Speaks as well as you. So I would love to get your take on this as we talk a little bit about some of the big cases against the former president and how that will play out over the next few months. So stay with us. We're just getting started here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Game on. State of the Union 2024. Huge night for President Joe Biden.
This was a CVS receipts type of night.
He dragged the hell out of the Supreme Court. And he said, y'all gonna see the power of women.
Trump's brain is melting as we speak.
We want to organize from a place of strength.
There's no confusion whatsoever about what they've done and what they plan to do.
What Donald Trump is doing is presenting a fallacy.
He is convincing them that he's all in it for them, when in fact he's all in it for himself.
We do not feel Joe Biden, in spite of the success that have taken place during this administration economically. There are too many things where we do not feel like he's had our back.
You should also be investing in the barbershops and the beauty salons and the hookah bars and the folks who are going to the club, and there's a way to actually get them registered because we've done it before. But if you don't have folks who understand that dynamic, then you're missing a big opportunity.
So we said we just celebrated. For what? Why don't you go to celebrate rather than recommit yourself to the fight if the very thing we went to celebrate has been gutted?
Republicans did not support a lot of the bills that were necessary to keep the country fluid. You can't only love your country when you win, right?
Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
This was absolutely the knockdown, drag out that we were really waiting for.
Black voters are the base. They're the most important base of the Democratic Party. There was very few language in this speech. At the time, we see an attack on Black history, attack on DEI. The end of the BLM racial reckoning thing has come to a complete end because there was nothing in this speech for that.
Our movement has never been grounded in two-party politics in this country. All of our movements ultimately get co-opted by a state that is anti-Black.
They called the old because they knew the way, and they called the young because they were strong. And I believe there is a good combination of that, but we can have ideas and we can have visions and dreams, but we have to have our young people also working beside us because they are strong, and they will run that race, and they will run it to the end.
Activists, organizers, and young people have been pushing this administration to be on the right side of history and to do something about the issues that they care about.
While the Ukraine and Palestine are critical issues, they are not the only global issues.
Not a single Black person who should ever let it come out their mouth that I'm tired. Because there is somebody else who came before us who didn't stop fighting.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we talk a little bit about former President Donald Trump's case down in Georgia, as it has been announced that Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee is allowing the defense attorneys, the lawyers of Trump, to appeal his decision to keep DA Fani Willis onto the case after her whole controversial relationship with the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, who has stepped away from the case as part of the conditions for her to stay on. So he stepped away, she stays on, and now the Trump legal team has a problem. Let's check back in with my sister Suzette Speaks as we have this conversation and looking at the big picture of the impact of all of this, if this is going to be a situation that is going to affect the case in any type of way. Suzette, let's bring you back into the frame. What you were saying before the pause that is this more like just a technicality thing, or is this a thing that is rooted in changing the trajectory of this particular case?
Well, to answer that question, we have to look again, what is this case about? So again, this was one of the biggest distractions to the case. The case is about whether former President Trump and his alleged co-conspirators tried to coerce Georgia officials into overturning the 2020 election where President Biden won Georgia. So if we recall, again, the phone call made to Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State. Oh, Brad, paraphrasing former President Trump, we just need to find 11,000 odd votes and we'll be successful. So that specific charge actually was just thrown out by Judge McAfee, and the prosecution was given leave to refile, saying that it was unclear. We talked about that on the show last week. Go back and watch. But this week, we got the ruling where, again, the decision on whether Fani Willis should be disqualified from this case because of the relationship since confirmed with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade was put to issue to this judge. He rendered a ruling. He said, nope, I don't think, again, it was a direct conflict of interest, but it had an appearance of impropriety that has tainted the prosecution. Therefore, one of you has to leave the case. Since then, the defense team for the alleged co-conspirators has said, no, we want to appeal this. They filed a motion to appeal, and the judge could have said yes or no. Judge McAfee said, yes, I'll give you leave to appeal. So again, we have the lower level courts, the middle level, which are the appellate courts, and then the high courts of each and every state. And we have the same on the federal side, right? Yeah. So now the question becomes, Farajii, is this a distraction? Is it small? Well, Judge McAfee has indicated whether that he wants to continue the trial as normal or as best as he can while there is a looming appellate decision that has to be made. So the question becomes, and I don't know if that I have a yes or no answer, what he's indicated that he wants to set down other issues that have been raised by the parties for hearing and move forward, set a trial date, etc. What the defendants will try to argue is that this is an issue with such consequence that, Judge, we have to stop the trial. We can't go forward until we know on appeal whether DA Willis should rightfully be allowed to stay as you've ruled, or whether the appellate court will disagree with you and say, no, she has a conflict of interest indeed, and she and former special prosecutor Mr. Wade should be removed. So I am not sure in the Georgia system how this will play out as to whether trial dates and everything that goes along with that, the preliminary hearing, et cetera, will keep going so that we might see a trial date before, for example, the November election. Again, Judge McAfee has indicated that's what he wants to do and continue to move the case forward. Of course, again, the defense tactic usually is to stall, right? To delay. So they're going to be on the other side of that coin, which is to say, we can't go forward. This is an issue of such importance to the outcome of this case. It doesn't make sense we're having a trial if we don't even know if she should be the one prosecuting it. So that's going to be kind of up in the air for now. But I've seen, based on what the judge said, he's going to put down for hearing the other preliminary motions. He's trying to move it forward as if the case can go forward. In the meantime, this appeal is lingering out there. So it's almost like this huge distraction away from this case due to that relationship with Fani Willis and Nathan Wade continues to loom over the case. It's like it hasn't been put to bed. So sorry for the pun, but it hasn't been put away completely. Now we have to wait for the appellate ruling on the matter as well.
But by the fact that Nathan Wade stepping down and stepping away from the case, I mean, what grounds do they have to stand on at this point? It's not as if, you know, they're both working on the case. He resigned last week. And so at this point, what grounds can they say that she, because she made one type of decision in relate to her personal life, that means she doesn't, that she's not able to make a good decision based on this case? I'm trying to understand. And I'm not saying it's not your fault, but I'm just saying, what is the ground that they try to stand on? The
basis, I have not read this motion, but the basis is to say the judge got the ruling wrong, and here's why. So they're going to put forth some technicalities as to why this judge, they believe, should have disqualified her. So the judge made a ruling. They don't agree with it. They're saying, based on a matter of law, they're going to come up with some arguments and say, no, appeals court, please overrule the lower court because he got it wrong. And here's why. So it's not to say that it will not be upheld. The appeals court might agree with Judge McAfee and say he was right in his ruling to keep the case moving, to keep DA Willis on, or Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. But they have a right. Our system has a checks and balances element to it. So that if you think your judge got it wrong on the lower level, you have the right to appeal. So it's not saying that their appeal does have substantive grounds one way or another, but they have a right to be reheard, so to speak, because they feel like this judge got it wrong. So he gave leave. He gave them permission. And he was like, guess what? He could have said no, but he said, I think, again, because of the defendants who were involved in the case, I'm going to grant you leave to go ahead and get your appeal heard. So again, it's kind of like a stall tactic. It's kind of like, again, they don't agree with what he did, so they want another bite at the apple. Our system allows for that. If there is a legal technicality that was overlooked or some kind of legal grounds that should reverse this, we always want to preserve the right of the defendant to say, that one judge got it wrong. Yeah. Please, upper superior judge, look at it again for me and tell me if you agree with him. So it's kind of like the nature of the system.
This is interesting. We got to take another quick pause, but when we come back, we're going to spend just a couple of more minutes in this because some crew members do have some thoughts around this issue, Suzette, and I want to share it with folks and you. So stay with us, folks. We continue the conversation on the other side. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
I need you to scream for your new beginning. 5, 4, 3, 2. I need you to shout for it. I need you to shout for it. It won't always be like this. Sooner or later, it's gonna work in your brother's favor, in your sister's favor. They shall not die. They shall not die. They shall not die. I want you to embrace somebody and tell them welcome to the greatest season of your life. Hug somebody, welcome.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we are hearing and checking in with our sister, Suzette Speaks, host of the Suzette Speaks show on YouTube, as well as the licensed attorney in the state of Florida. And she is just telling us, breaking it down for us so we can understand, like we're 4th and 5th graders. No. I'm more like a third. I'm a third grader, Suzette. But you're breaking it down to give us your analysis of what's happening here in the latest development of the election interference case in the state of Georgia. We're going to talk about that other case in a quick moment. But I wanted to at least, acknowledge what some of the crew members are saying on this, Suzette, because like you mentioned, her controversial relationship with former special prosecutor Nathan Wade has now become like this gray cloud over this whole case. And now Trump is trying to capitalize off of that in order to delay until he thinks he's going to get into the White House. So this is interesting. This is a tactic that we knew was coming. And this is something that that I think the American people, now we're going to have to be drawn through this whole process. But let me just share what folks are saying about this. Cindy, you said just because Trump wants Fani gone doesn't mean she'll be gone. Trump knows how to work the system. He sued enough people. That's true.
Again, you have a right to appeal. Doesn't mean your appeal has merit. So again, people, I've done civil cases where people stole people money and they want to appeal. We got the evidence that the money was, you broke the contract, et cetera, et cetera. You didn't pay. They can appeal if they want to. But the evidence may reflect that what the lower judge ruled is actually correct. So they have a right to appeal granted by Judge McAfee, but doesn't necessarily mean it will overturn his ruling. But appeals take longer, right? They have to be hearing, etc.
Absolutely. Real Brooklyn, you said as a public servant, the mere fact that she was caught up in this foolishness, she should be removed. Her exposure to this looming issue will not go away and can affect her emotional optics.
It's an unforced error. It was again, she and Mr. Special Counsel Nathan Wade. Again, the nature of this relationship is what brought all of this scrutiny, and it was just bad judgment. So for them, again, he has now left the office, and I think that allowed for some reprieve. But again, the appeal now keeps this issue on the table in the public's eye as well as in this trial. So again, this is one of the most complex cases with all these co-defendants, all these charges. And, based on what we've seen Judge McAfee do, there are going to be a lot more objections and on the defense's part to try to get the case to, again, slow it down and hopefully not see the light of day before the election. So, but again, their poor judgment is what brought this issue to the fore and had us kind of sidetracked with all the weeks of, all that personal information that came out from all sides. So again, it's not something that we would have wanted to see, but the judge said the relationship was not a conflict of interest, although
it
was
a result of bad choices. That's the word that he used, right?
Exactly. And that it was, again, I think I read appearance of impropriety several times. So that's the consequences are.
Absolutely. Shauna Marsh. Shauna, you said, I wish Fani used more discernment, but at the end of the day, the situation is what it is. I love when Black people say that. It is what it is, yo.
Can't go back. It is what it is.
It is what it is. They will stall until the election draws near. Absolutely. I think that's the ultimate goal. Is to stall on this whole situation. Nicole asked this question, and I think we spoke about this, but Nicole Smith and Shauna, thank you so much. Nicole, you said, how important were the 3 charges that were dropped to the case?
They can be refiled. Like the judge did everything but say, here, find or clarify these charges. This, again, with respect to that phone call to, at the time, Secretary of State, Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and Trump encouraging him to allegedly find more votes based on that phone call, the recording that everyone heard. They just said based on, it was broadly stated based on the Constitution and how that violated the Constitution. Judge McAfee came back and said, you need to be more clear. The Constitution is made up of many concepts, of course, that we could spend all day on one, and that the defense has a right to be able to zealously put their defense together, but if they don't understand the charge or the basis of the charge, it's not fair to them. So he basically threw it back in the prosecution's lap. You have 6 months. You can refile it. He did all but just say, come on, refile this with more clarity and specificity. So they still can come back. And I do think they will refile them with that clarity and specificity that the judge has now required and said this is, again, too vague for anybody to defend themselves against it. It's not saying that the actual acts weren't criminal in nature or possibly allegedly criminal in nature, but it's just saying that how they wrote them, it wasn't enough for this judge to say the defense could come with an adequate defense based on what you guys are alleging. It was too broad, too vague, etc. So absolutely. I think they'll probably refile them.
Yeah, I think so too. We're going to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about the other case that Trump is involved in, which is the case where that it's going to be reviewed by the Supreme Court of the United States, where the former president is asking or saying to the highest court in the land that he should have absolute immunity. Absolute immunity. We're going to check in with our sister Suzette Speaks to see what the hell is he talking about? How does this happen? We're going to share with you the latest in that particular case with the Supreme Court. Join us in the conversation. Post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on Big Brother Roland Martin social media, on his Facebook page, his YouTube channel, and on the X platform. Stay with us, folks. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
I have something I want to tell you. I am running for president.
Of the United States? Holy.
I'm paving the road for a lot of other people looking like me to get elected.
Brooklyn's first black representative.
You're about to make history.
You want to be president? You ain't no man.
Maybe we should find your mother. All you got is your one vote.
You sound just like every other politician.
Do I look like every other politician?
Freedom!
Truly, you can't win.
And why can't I win? I have an opportunity to make a difference.
Creation!
This isn't a campaign. It's a joke. The only thing anybody's gonna remember is that there were a bunch of black folks who made fools of themselves. I'll kill you!
See too much suffering. And I don't know how to not try.
We're living it proud. Step by step.
I don't think I'm special. I just want to remind people what's possible.
We need something that's going to make some noise.
The Black Panthers and Shirley Chisholm. It's like thunder and lightning. I'm going to force all the politicians to be held accountable.
You gonna do all that? School teacher from Brooklyn.
Harriet was just a slave. Rosa was just a domestic. What is it you do for a living again? The people of America are watching us.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, checking in with my sister, one of our great legal and political minds here on the Black Star Network, my sister Suzette Speaks. As we talk about the former president and a couple of the big cases that he's facing right now. Okay, let's leave from Georgia. Let's go back to D.C. and let's go to the Supreme Court. As the former president had told the Supreme Court yesterday, Suzette, that he should be granted absolute immunity for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election that led to the January 6th attack on the Capitol, saying a ruling against him will, quote, incapacitate every future president. Now, Here's why they say that. This is interesting, but it doesn't make sense. Here's what Trump's team did. Check this out. Take a look at this, folks. This is from NBC News. Trump's legal team, they filed a brief outlining its legal argument ahead of oral arguments on April 25th, saying Trump should enjoy absolute immunity for any official acts he undertook as president. The president cannot function, and the presidency itself cannot retain its vital independence if the president faces criminal prosecution for official acts once he leaves office. If the court rejects his claim, it would incapacitate every future president, leaving presidents open to blackmail and extortion, they added.
Well, I can't. Let me be respectful. No, the knee-jerk reaction is like, homeboy, what you talking about? Like, that's what I really wanted to say, but I'm not saying that. That was my interesting thought.
It is what it is.
I'm just saying that, everyone must make the legal arguments. That's what we attorneys are paid to do. So we therefore are going to do our best to defend our clients. And so again, this is one of the 4 jurisdictions that former President Trump is facing charges. So as Farajii laid out, this is the DC case, right? This is the one that's being led by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith with regards to the former president's role on the January 6th attack on the Capitol. So we knew this would be coming, right? Jack Smith actually proffered it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, remember, said, wait, no, we won't go right to it. Go through the proper channels, go back down to the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals ruled that, this was not something that the president immediately, and should I say widely is granted, which is broad-based immunity, which is what they're arguing. So Supreme Court, here you go. So the Supreme Court will be hearing arguments on this issue, this specific issue, not that case as a whole, but just this specific issue, beginning on April 26th. So in preparation for the oral arguments that will be made in front of the 9 justices, a brief must be filed, right? So what we saw that came out, which is what we're discussing here, was the defense's legal arguments in that brief. So in the defense brief, they are stating, as Farajii just laid out, that this is something that every president must have, which is blanket immunity for anything said or done while in office. So again, we can see, I think any lay person can listen and as to what we just read, and we can read the brief, ourselves, that that might be problematic if we cannot, as American people, hold all and any elected official responsible for possible criminal acts that are committed while in office. And it is a slippery slope to say that any president in the future will be immune from any level of prosecution, no matter what he or she does, right? So that's basically the argument that's being laid out here. There are those who will vehemently disagree based on, again, the likelihood that if we set this as the standard, our president therefore becomes a king, or in other words, someone who is above the law, right? And that's the key question. Is the president subject to the laws, just like any other citizen, regardless of whether he or she is serving in office or not, when he or she possibly breaks those laws, right? Commits a alleged criminal act? Can we go back and say the president at that time was outside of the law and therefore can be held accountable, criminally speaking? So that's the basic argument they're making. We'll see what the justices on the Supreme Court say starting April 26th. Again, we have a conservative court, 6 conservative, more leaning justices, 3, you would have been called them moderate. Some would say moderate or liberal, but I'm like, at this point, they're pretty moderate compared to their fellow justices, 3 of which who were appointed by former President Trump himself. So we're not sure how they will rule. But again, this has been the initial arguments based on what has been filed with the court now by the defense team.
Well, and I'm glad that you broke it down. Here's the thing. And then when I read this, I was like, what? Because this is, like you said, this is a slippery slope. This is very problematic on so many different levels. And nobody would have expected that a sitting U.S. president would instigate and call for the overturning of an election So much so that he would say, hey, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, like he said on January the 6th. I mean, no one thought that a day like that would ever come in the American political history, right? No one ever saw that. So the basis of his lawyers to say, oh, well, it's going to incapacitate future presidents, is like, when has a president started to call for a revolution against the government that he's supposed to serve as a representative of?
They're trying to make, and I don't think they're honest comparison. I think it's false comparisons for presidents, for example, like former President George Bush, when he ordered for American troops to invade Iraq based on the information. This is what they're saying. Trying to put it out there. Where they coming from? Why are they saying this? They're saying, well, could he be prosecuted for war crimes? Could he be prosecuted for that? That's so, like, to me, apples and oranges. It's not the same thing.
It is, very much.
So instigating an insurrection against the very government to overthrow the voting that the American people did, and the outcomes that Mr. Biden won the election fair and square, and felt, they filed lawsuits. I mean, beyond just January 6th, but especially on that day, we should never forget what happened on those Capitol steps, right? And the terrible outcomes of death, the destruction, and the just the frightening gall that they thought they had the support of former President Trump in trying to see that our freedoms and liberties were infringed upon, right? Based on lies, based on untruths. So will he be held accountable? We'll see. But this is the key issue as to whether Jack Smith can even prosecute. It's kind of similar, in fact, to the Fani Willis case. They want to keep the trial going, but this main issue, or now this side issue, I should say, should she even be the prosecutor still, becomes now the focus. Same thing with this. There's a side issue now that is whether a president can be even brought to justice, just like any other citizen. So we have the underlying crime or the alleged crime, and then we have a side issue that now puts everything on hold until we get an outcome for that. And Jack Smith wants this ruling so he can set this down for trial, get the judge back on track. Judge Tanya Chutkin, she again has indicated that she's ready to move once the Supremes lay out the law, right? So again, the race to get this set for trial prior to the election is on. So it's really critical.
I got one question, but I'm going to hold it. We got to take another pause when we come back, but I want to throw this on your mind right now, Suzette. How can these justices, and I'm speaking of the Supreme Court, they're reviewing a case like this, but they're still hearing the type of rhetoric that Trump says. Like, even with the latest controversy of him talking about this, it will be a bloodbath being elected. Like, knowing that he has this type of inflammatory rhetoric, he speaks this is the chaotic space that we find him constantly in. How can do they just put a blinders up? Put fingers in their ear and say, oh, we're not going to hear this part. Because it does not make sense to say he has absolute immunity, but he's still speaking the same type of language. Matter of fact, he's turned up the language in some cases, right? So how does that play out in the court system? I'm going to give you a moment. We're going to give you a break to think about that one. And then when we come back, let's get some answers to that. And plus, we want to hear what you got to say, crew, as we talk about Trump's request for absolute immunity to the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts around that? Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next-generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Terry and I, we couldn't play in the white clubs in Minnesota. It felt like such a, strength through adversity type moment that I think black people just have to go through. We have to figure it out.
Right.
We make lemons out of lemonade. But there's a reason we rented a ballroom, did our own show, promoted it, got like 1,500 people to come out. Clubs were sitting empty. They were like, "Where's everybody at?" And I said, "They're down watching the band you wouldn't hire." So it taught us not only that we had the talent of musicians, but we also had to have the talent of entrepreneurship. It wasn't like a seat at the table. It's like, no, let's build the table.
That's right.
We got to build the table. And,
That's right.
And that was the thing. And of course, after that, we got all kinds of offers.
Of course.
Right, to come play in the clubs. But we didn't do it. We
You're
said,
like, no, we good.
No, we're good. We're good. And that's what put us on a path of national. And of course, when Prince made it, then it was like, okay, we see it can be done.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we've been talking to my sister and our great contributor, Suzette Speaks, and she's been breaking it down for us, helping us to get some clarity around these cases with former President Donald Trump. Now we're talking about the case, or talking about his request for absolute immunity. In this case, that is going to be reviewed by the Supreme Court with opening arguments starting on April the 25th. And I'm wondering, Suzette, as we talk about all that relates to this case and just where we stand at this, how does the court move forward? Here's a guy that has used, and I know Sean Dupree, I see you say that he just mentioned it, that I referred to it as inflammatory language. The language, if you go back to the tape of what it was said on January the 6th, that was language that was used to inspire, to get people riled up, language that was used to get people. And then he explicitly said, this is the funny thing when I hear people say, well, he didn't mean this, he didn't say. That man explicitly said, even though he didn't do it himself, let's go down to the Capitol.
His staff had to hold him back. He was
had to hold him back.
According to Pastor Hutchinson and others that we heard testify during the January 6th Select Committee in Congress, all that went down. Like, wow. So yeah, it's on record from other people who were there contemporaneously at the same time, watching what happened, what he was saying, what he was doing. Everybody can't be lying, bro. Everybody can't. Right. I mean, we're going to bring up the opposite, the opposing, arguments that, Mr. Trump said he didn't incite anything and, he didn't participate directly in any type of insurrection. But as you're saying, the arguments are being made that he incited violence on that day based on him using the bully pulpit of the presidency, where he encouraged folks, leading up to and all through January 6th to keep it going and go take back the Capitol. It's like I remember the lady getting pepper spray in her eye. It's a revolution. Like they were fed, they were incited, they were continuously made to feel as if there was something wrong with the election outcome and that somebody had been stealing, quote, votes. Him, Giuliani, several others, were on this constant drumbeat that got people literally misinformed. We're still dealing with it now, that people are thinking that there was some sort of election interference, because there's no way, according to him, he could have lost this, but he did. And that's the thing. So how does I'm just saying from a court's perspective, how do you get prepared to review and hear this case,
And this case is about language that was used, his behavior, and it's still continuing. It's not like he's changed his language. He's actually turned up his language in some cases. It's not like he's told people, look, guys, look, we're going to try to settle this in a different way. He's going harder in the paint right now. So does the court just turn a blind eye? Like, how do they not include that in their decision making, especially in this particular decision of whether the president has absolute immunity? How does that happen?
Well, the court, and any court, is supposed to only consider, the evidence that the permissible evidence presented, before it, right? What is happening in, pop culture, what is happening in the news and in society at large is not supposed to have any influence on our justice system. But we know, like, we're not going to pretend that they're not human beings. We're not going to pretend that, they don't open a paper or, they don't sit at a coffee shop and listen to overhear what people are saying next, to them, et cetera, et cetera. They're not in a bubble is what I'm saying. So it is a part of human nature to kind of be, I wouldn't say susceptible to, but aware of what is being said in the court of public opinion. But their job is to remove all bias and to look at the letter of the law, what is written on the paper, and apply the facts, what evidence is presented, right? The argument that we just saw, the brief that we just saw, plaintiffs will have leave to file their brief, and the arguments made are all that they are supposed to consider, right? What has already been admitted in that case, right? And put into the record, as well as what is being argued in the briefs that are being presented. So they're supposed to be, again, the umpire, the neutral arbiter of the law, right? We have Lady Justice, and she's got her blindfold on. Why? Because the law is not supposed to be any respecter of a person, no matter if they're president, right? Or if they out, sweeping the street. You're supposed to have the same access to justice as well as the same outcome. Now, we know our legal system is inherently, there are things that are still biased, right? Based on race, based on age, gender, and even social status, right?
Right.
But they're supposed to, though, their role is to remain neutral and to apply the facts presented and the arguments presented against the law as written and interpret it such that, again, it could be anybody in that defendant's seat. So they're not supposed to, Farajii, be influenced by all this outside chatter. But I would submit that, again, they're human beings. They live in this world with us. They put on their pants one leg at a time, just like all of us. So there's no way they can't hear anything, but they're supposed to be a neutral body that only considers the facts before it and applies the law.
We will see if that happens. I love the face that you're making right now.
I'm going to have faith.
We will see what will happen. Folks, we got to take another quick pause. All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Let's go from D.C., travel to the state of Florida, and talk about what Suzette's governor, Ron DeSantis, is doing.
Don't make me choke.
And his immigration plan, how he plans to handle Haitian migrants if they are expected to make a wave into the state of Florida, and how he plans to handle that situation. Also, later on, we'll talk a little bit about Beyonce, how she spoke on Instagram about her deciding to switch genres to go into creating a country music album, but she made it explicitly clear. She said it's not a country album. It's a Beyonce album.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got a whole different genre now. Beyonce is not just a move, she's a genre.
Exactly. Don't call me country, call me Beyonce. I love it.
Stay with us. Those conversations up next and here on the second half of the show here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome to the second half of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and wanting to be a part of the conversation. Unlike any other space with digital media, this is the space where your voice has a place in the conversation. And so we are streaming live on a number of different platforms where you can join us and be a part of it. First, we're streaming live on our home platform at blackstarnetwork.com. That's the website for the network, Black Star Network. Make sure you check us out there. Also, make sure you follow us on social media at Black Star Network, as well as download the app on all of your devices, on whether it's an Android device or a Mac or Apple device, whatever the device is, you can download it for free on all of your devices. And of course, we ask for your donation as we are continuing to power through this digital space, bringing you news and content unlike any other space for Black America. Now, we're also streaming live on Amazon platforms, on Amazon News and your Fire TV. On Amazon Prime Video, you can check us out there. So just find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV, The News. You can find us on the Freevee network. And big shout out to Freevee for their support. You can find us on now under News for Black Star Network and Plex TV. Big shout out to Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We stream live there. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, The News and Opinion. Now, if you want to join us in a conversation and be a part of the illustrious culture crew, just check in with us, jump into the chat as we're streaming on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page. So big shout out to the crew on Facebook. We're also on, there we go. We're also on his YouTube channel. So big shout out to the chat members in the YouTube channel. So many folks.
Yes.
That's right. So many folks are checking in and on the X platform. That's right. They're formerly known as Twitter. You can find us there. And y'all know whose voice that is. She joins us every Wednesday here on The Culture. My sister, Suzette Speaks, licensed attorney out of the state of Florida. She's the host of the Suzette Speaks show. She's a political strategist. And she's just a really great person to have on the show.
I'm so grateful, Farajii. Thank you.
He's just a really great person.
You're awesome.
You're welcome. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about the state of Florida right now. Now, this Haitian situation, this Haiti situation is really getting out of hand. I mean, we talked a little bit about, you broke it down for us last week, when we see some of the complex issues there, from the prime minister resigning to the gangs coming in and taking over, wanting a seat at the table, and in some cases wanting to take some leadership role of the country. Now we're at this place looking on the other side of things where Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is preparing for a migrant wave of Haitians to come into the state to cross the borders. And the governor is saying that one particular plan that's not off the table is to transport those who come across the borders, those Haitian migrants, to transport them from Florida to Martha's Vineyard, because he doesn't want them into the state. He said this on a podcast, and he said, quote, let's look at this first quote here. And I think this is interesting. He said, we do have our transport program also that's going to be operational. Haitians land in the Florida Keys. Their next stop very well may be Martha's Vineyard. Wow. Wow. This is Governor Ron DeSantis' immigration plan. Talk to me, Suzette. How does this play out for those, the large Haitian community that's already existed in South Florida? And now when the governor says stuff like this, you talking about that rhetoric again, I'm sure it has to get it's got to make people feel very concerned about what's going to be happening, especially to family members down there. So what's your take?
So we went into a deep dive. Thank you for that wonderful outline of where we are, Farajii. We went into a deep dive, watched last week Wednesday's show. I did my best to try to bring context and nuance to why we are here at this particular moment in Haiti, where people are literally on the brink, right? There are people that are being terrorized. There are folks that cannot leave their homes, women and children, just in the most compromising of statuses. Some people calling them gang leaders, others would call them warlords, depending on who you ask. Like the nature of the takeover by ex-governmental, outside of governmental gang leaders has become a dire situation. And now the Haitian people are literally not able to leave their homes, especially in the Port-au-Prince area. So we have a governor now that we know decided to stop running for president, but still I think is behaving as if he is, because we know that at the height of his campaign for president, we saw a similar tactic that was used where our governor in Florida sent a plane to San Antonio, Texas. Y'all remember this was about September 2022, and gathered about 50, unbeknown to them, mostly Venezuelan asylum seekers into a plane and flew them all the way to an island in Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard. And for those of us who recall this, harrowing scene of people saying that they didn't know what they signed, they didn't know when they was going, they thought they was going to New York, other places, and in this kind of very, divisive and shocking, because people were like, is this human trafficking? Like, what is this? That's not even your state, and why are you going over there to get people and putting them in a place that is not even anticipating their arrival? And they were put in, this kind of like very just unorganized debacle, right? Put their hopes of coming here and trying to find a way in legally into the balance. So it was a very big publicity stunt, many would argue. So here we are yet again. Let me just first and foremost make very clear, there is not, by any accounts, I was just listening to an interview by the city of North Miami. As I told you, there are a lot of prominent Haitian and Haitian American leaders in the South Florida area or throughout Florida. The numbers that we see, again, according to census, is in excess of 500,000, 544,000 approximately. Haitian live in Florida, right? So this is a huge voting bloc. These are folks who are now part of the American tapestry. And skip this fear-mongering tactic, right? I was just listening to as we were getting ready for today's show, some of the press conferences that Governor DeSantis has been giving. One particularly I was listening to from Polk County. And I'm telling you, there are people that are getting two different views of this immigration border crisis. There is now this, and I think the Republicans, like Mr. DeSantis, has been kind of pushing this narrative of trying to be tough on the border, law and order, and like this kind of scary otherizing of people who are trying to find a means, hopefully legally, in many cases, to come and seek asylum because their country is imploding, right? So now we have press conferences that have been made, but specifically to what you just mentioned in a podcast by Dana Loesch, to give you a little bit of her background. She has served as a spokesperson in the past for the National Rifle Association. She's worked for Breitbart News as well as hosted a show on Blaze. The Blaze TV is another conservative platform. So she had Governor DeSantis on her show Tuesday. And it was in this conversation that, and during this interview that he mentioned, as you just quoted, perhaps they'll go to Martha's Vineyard. Once again, according to, and I'll finish my statement, the local officials here have not seen an increase or influx of this implied, impending, overrunning of the border by Haitians. We're not seeing that at this time. That is not happening. It is not a clear and present danger now. However, Mr. DeSantis is using this as a talking point for those who believe that there is this ongoing crisis, and that now the new pawn in it is the Haitian people, our folks who potentially may make their way here, but we're not seeing that at this time. Now, has there been a past of when we've seen an increase and an influx in Haitian migration? Of course, when the president was assassinated, Jovenel Moise. Right after that, at the border in Texas, we saw an additional about 15,000 Haitian migrants had made their way through Mexico all the way to the border. Remember, we saw the horseback of the border patrolmen, with the whip out, and unfortunately how they were being treated there. And this is going to be, I think, a political pawn of an issue here, because again, he has now placed more money in personnel. Now, this is supposed to be a Coast Guard issue, which is the federal government protecting our seas, right, on our border with the ocean, and interdicting any vessels that have people that are not supposed to be here. They do that every day, and it's ongoing. But what Governor DeSantis has done is now put money to few more agents in Fish and Wildlife, the Florida Department of Fish and Wildlife, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, to look as if he is being proactive and getting in front of this and making this an issue before it is one, so that he can score, some would argue, political points with his base and giving people this idea that is very scary. I know we have to take a break. I know I want
no problem. Let's take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation as we talk about this issue with Suzette. And of course, folks, I want to hear directly from you. Post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's Facebook channel and a Facebook page and YouTube channel. I would love to get your take on this, as we're talking about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is saying it's not off the table to ship Haitians who come across the borders, to Florida, to ship them to Martha Vineyards in Massachusetts. What's your take on this, crew? Join us in the conversation and stay tuned. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196. Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks, who's the licensed attorney in the state of Florida, as well as a political strategist, as we talk about this latest situation, this latest development, and this Haiti crisis. Now, we know that the country of Haiti is under some deep transitions, some serious transitions. Violence continues to erupt there. Political instability is running rampant. Gangs, as they say, gangs are just taking over the streets, and people are very concerned that this is going to end. This is going to be a major humanitarian crisis for a number of different reasons. And as part of that story, then you have to look at the relationship that Haiti has to the United States, and more in particular to the state of Florida. As we can expect, as folks know that, you have a strong, a very large, a very active Haitian community in the state of Florida, and particularly in South Florida, where our sister Suzette is in. So breaking it down, understanding this, but it looks like Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is saying his immigration plan is that if any Haitians who cross the border to come into Florida, they may be shipped to Martha's Vineyard. And that's how he's dealing with this. And I think this is also interesting. He also said in that same podcast as well, Suzette, talking to Dana Loesch, he said, I've got enough issues just dealing with people fleeing from blue states moving into Florida.
My Lord. Well, Farajii, we saw how disastrous the first attempt was back in 2022. And I just want to, because I see the wonderful contributors of our culture crew, the contributions in the chat, and I want to address a couple things just to correct the record. So during the 2022 incident that I talked about, the Haitians at the border incident that I referenced, I want to be sure that I do identify that there were officers, Custom and Border Patrol officers, that were disciplined for using excess force. Right. So that's something that actually did happen. Now, I did a quick Google search, and I thank you for my online culture crew onto whether there were whips actually used or not. And I'm seeing that. And again, I would probably have to research. But from the picture depicted and seen across the world, headlines read whips used. But they're saying that it was not whips. It was like a whipping motion. So I will correct the record in saying that although it was initially reported as Haitians being whipped at the border, there was excessive force being used, and those officers who were involved in that incident, as Haitians were trying to bring food, they're allowed to go back over to Mexico, that side, to pass food along and come back. As that food to their countrymen and brethren transfer was occurring, excessive force was used as found by the Customs and Border Patrol of the United States. So I just want to correct that. Thank you for that information, chat. We on top of it. Okay. So back to what we're discussing here. We know how disastrous it was when the governor of Florida, sent the asylum seekers and chartered a plane from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, and what happened. I think the folks, generally speaking, in Martha's Vineyard were like caught really off guard, and local churches and organizations had to figure out where these folks were going to sleep, food, and, just sanitary conditions to put them in, because this was literally a surprise. Here they are, kind of movement to gain national headlines. So this reference made during this interview is a similar type of tactic to say, I'm tough. I am going to protect the border, and I'm going to, again, for a problem that doesn't yet exist, I'm going to make sure I laid out there that the, as he calls it, transportation program, program is what he said, is in full effect. So they will be willing to use taxpayer dollars to charter, to send folks who are fleeing one of the most incredibly dangerous spots right now in the Western Hemisphere to another state, and trying to make, I don't know if it's to make a political point or to score political points, but he's said it out loud, and now it's kind of creating a stir here locally. I have also been in conversations, just in addition to what we're discussing, the governor say that there are, folks working kind of behind the scenes to see that a solution for Haitians in the island by Haitians on the island, because the reason why, and I was listening to the North Miami mayor speak about this, he's like, the lockdown that is right now occurring in Port-au-Prince, people cannot move from their homes or they risk their lives. There's nobody leaving anytime soon, like at all, because of just the state of affairs of the chaos and the overrun, situation that is now, folks going door to door for, food, but they can't move. This is like a lockdown. This is like your life is in the balance kind of situation. So even if they wanted to leave, is the point I'm making. Right now, the situation is not such that can even occur because of the gangs holding basically the capital hostage at this time. So it is now up to hopefully a diplomatic solution. From what I'm hearing from people who are in the channels, speaking to State Department and other folks, there are some solutions that have been presented, some plans for Haitians by Haitians who have been active there in the country itself. There's some pushback, depending on who you speak to, with the CARICOM involvement, what we talked about last week, where there was a meeting last week in Jamaica, where a sister island in the Caribbean community of nations was trying to help broker some type of resolution, because something has to be done, right? We're out of time, right? People are hungry, people are dying. There is, again, no government, no civil society to protect you. No, we can't call 911. There's no reaction to that. There's blockades on every road. It's just chaos at this time. So the innocents, the people who are there, who, did not wish this upon themselves, for someone to kill their former president, and now have, a president step down, and then now have, these folks, these factions now coming forward to try to control by firearms that weren't manufactured in Haiti. We're still trying to say, where do they get these weapons from? They're not made there. No one, there are $1,000 assault rifles that we're seeing in pictures, $2,000 assault rifles. Somebody is supplying something. Right. And so there's a lot of conversations about how do we get that to stop? Where does, the United States come in based on its long relationship, not only in proximity, but as I stated last week, with some of the history between the United States, not only as the government had invaded, if you want to call it, occupied Haiti from 1950 to 1934 after natural disasters, what has happened with U.S. NGO apparatus and money that was gone or taken, or, natural resources that were exploited, however you want to call it. We're intertwined in Haiti's history quite heavily. And now, again, with the presence of, Haitian Americans now as a part of the American tapestry, we're paying attention. So, again, I think this is a kind of premature tactic to now another scary face on an immigrant community, so that there is a reactive response by, some folks who I guess he's trying to appeal to in his base. So I think we got to be very careful to outline, again, there is no large influx happening at this current moment. This is, again, a premature conversation, but it's one that the governor wants to use as kind of like ammunition for this public persona that, in front of this. And he's going to make sure they're not going to even touch foot here. They're going to be in a plane to Martha's Vineyard, I guarantee. That's the vibe that I got from the interview.
Oh yeah, most definite. Very quickly before we take our next pause, because the fact that we do have to have this conversation, because he put it out there in the public space. So now at this point, we should have these conversations. But this thing is so crazy to me. I remember when all this stuff was happening before, and I would say, what is this all about? You had immigrants that were showing up in D.C. I remember there were some immigrants dropped off in front of Vice President Kamala Harris' home at one point.
Yes,
I mean, it's just
the point. You blue cities, You want immigrants? Here you go. Like
right. Like this is
in the middle of the cold with no Jackie food, nothing. Like just here you go.
And I think we wasn't even fully out of COVID yet, to be honest. I think we were. This was happening in the midst of COVID. But very quickly, Willie Frazier, you big brother Willie, you said no one should use our tax dollars to break a law that they put in place. It is illegal in Florida to move in a non-U.S. citizen. So DeSantis is breaking his own law.
This is gonna have
What's
to
your take on that?
This is gonna have to be challenged because again, I think there's still questions about what happened with the Venezuelan asylum seekers that were taken from Texas. I don't know where that lawsuit is. I think if I remember correctly, forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I remember the law enforcement official there in Texas was saying that they were going to pursue some sort of legal ramifications against the governor for sending a vehicle, if you will, an airplane, and transporting people across state lines out of Texas to Martha's Vineyard. I don't know. I can't say I've kept up with that lawsuit, but I do think there might have to be some kind of, legal challenge to what he's doing to prove that point, if you will.
Yeah. And very quickly before we take our break, how much of what are the people of Florida saying? I know where Democrats stand, and I know that there's some Republicans who may not even care, but the people, what about the citizens of Florida?
I might be in a bubble because I was on a call this week with over 100 Black women of all parts of the diaspora talking about what should the call to action be. That included a wonderful presentation by, again, the only Haitian American Congresswoman here, Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, and others who were just pleading for, this idea that unfortunately they do believe, Haitians will be used as this kind of pawn, and that unfortunately, based on the compassion and the humanitarian approach that we've taken in other places that are currently in wars, there shouldn't be a different approach here. And there is some sort of insinuation from some, I'm not the congresswoman, I won't put that on her, and that didn't come from her, but just in general, different factions are like, is it because they are darker complected why we see, people sitting on their hands, right? And how really dire it is if there's anybody who it will be, which plan we're going to accept. And again, I think there's some conversations being had about multiple approaches with different factions of folks there, and come together and let's go. The people are suffering. They were asking us to write Congress. There were even talks in some circles, and I haven't done the research, so I want to be sure to say this is just speculative, that there might be even talk of putting Haitians in Guantanamo.
What?
I was frightened. I get goosebumps thinking about it. I was like, what? Bruh. Like I get goosebumps thinking about it. There was all kinds of things that, whether we were, rumor or speculation, we want to be sure everybody is on, knows what's happening, so that we can get on top of calling our Congress people, calling the folks in the White House, etc. To say you got to do something, right? Just like we're dropping food elsewhere. I want to see action, and I think there are people in this South Florida community who feel just the same. The Biden administration right now, when it comes to folks who are not supposed to be here by law, they're being sent back, right? So, including Haitians. So there is no this open border or whatnot. There was a parole program that was offered, and many folks came through that parole program. But it's a very complex, and again, not a single solution. I don't think everybody's going to be happy. That was another thing that I came away with in that discussion. People are going to have to compromise. We need to get some governance in place so that, the people are protected, the innocent folks who are literally, barricaded in their homes. People cannot get out of their homes. If you're watching some of the ABC News coverage, they sent a reporter down there. It's like a ghost town. People, and then there's dead bodies, right? Depending on where you are. So it is a chaotic, and it could be floating before our eyes, and we don't want that to happen. We want to see some degree of intervention by international actors so that the people of Haiti have a chance to have self-determination and rebuilding their country.
There it is right there. We'll certainly keep our eyes on this situation. Folks, we got to take another pause when we come forward. Let's switch gears as we talk about what's happening in Haiti. Now switching to the entertainment space, let's talk about what's going on with Beyonce, how she spoke out about why she decided to put out an album that is rooted in country music. We'll share with you the latest around that and, of course, get your take. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by Suzette Speaks. Let's talk as we end out today's show. Such a fantastic show, a lot to do that we discuss and share, but we wanted to end it out on an even higher cultural note. Some people say, well, why are we talking about Beyonce? Because she's the culture.
It's Beyonce time.
She's the culture.
We're ready.
Yeah, you know,
heavy
you're
stuff,
ready.
heavy stuff before, and thank you to the chat. The chat is on fire. I appreciate everybody.
The chat is on fire.
For real. Love it.
No, really tough. It is on fire. Big shout out to, there we go. Big shout out to all of our new culture crew members. I know that people generally, they come in for these big conversations and then they don't want to leave. They like, oh, wait a minute, I like it here. Oh, a little controversy, a little black cultureness, and little this, little that. I kind of like this here. Oh, and the host shouts us out. Okay.
We appreciate divergent points of view. We do. We really do.
You can tell she's a lawyer. You can just tell Suzette is a lawyer. All right, look, speaking of Haiti, and talking about the issues, one of the big things that we haven't really talked about underneath of all of that stuff was race. And that is what the fact that Beyonce is now, want to address with her new piece of work, the Cowboy Carter album. Ooh. This is the cover art.
Ooh. Hey, babe. Ooh.
It's a little different. It's a little different because it is something else. So I don't know how what to expect from this. I saw this come out and I was like,
she went from the sheerness of the Renaissance horse to all American. Let's go, baby. It's interesting. I think it's
all right.
It's super interesting.
Very interesting. Well, she went on IG yesterday to post the cover art for this, but then she also added a long caption which she explains why she decided to move forward and kind of branching out into a different genre. Let me just share with you a little bit of what she said. Take a look at this, folks. This is from Beyonce. She said, "I feel honored to be the first Black woman with the #1 single on the Hot Country Songs chart." She said that would not have happened without the outpouring of support from each and every one of you. My hope is that years from now, the mention of any artist's race as it relates to releasing genres of music will be irrelevant. She is trying to do her part to kind of take away this whole talk of that she shouldn't be able to do this or she's not into this. Now, she said also that the album has been 5 years in the making, and it was born out of an experience that she had years ago where she did not feel welcome, and it was very clear that I wasn't. Now, she doesn't go into specifics, Suzette, as to what that experience was. But a lot of people are speculating that came as a result of her performing Daddy's Lessons during the 50th annual CMA Awards, where she was accompanied by Texas natives and country superstars, the Dixie Chicks. And that was back in 2016. Now, she said 5 years ago. I'm trying to do the math. She said 5 years ago. So if this is 2024, this is 2019, are you talking about that? Because 2016 would make it like 8 years ago.
Right. So I think there was some, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand, like, again, I don't know if we need to have specifics as to what was the catalyst for this, but just know that she went into a space that she did not feel welcome. What do you make of her trying to address the racial component of releasing music? Because she also said that she went into a deep dive and looked into the history of country music and found that that was a part of our history as Black folks in this country as well. So what do you make of what she said, and how do you think this is going to play out, Suzette?
We don't have enough time to get deep like we need to right now. I'm going to speak in sound bites, guys. Forgive me. But yes, so we know of the public kind of backlash when she sang at the 50th anniversary of the CMA Awards. The most watched 15 minutes of that award show came when she was on stage with the group now known as the Chicks. But a lot of the vitriol was negative. You don't belong in this space. You're not supposed to be in this space. This is not for you. And again, the irony of it is when you look at the development of almost every genre of music that's called American music, R&B, blues, jazz, country, where did it emanate from? Do we know? The descendants of enslaved Africans are at the base. That banjo, that instrument looks like a West African instrument. Oftentimes we get excluded from the very genres that came from our creativity. And so I think she's making a huge statement here. Again, we know about that the Chicks incident, but we don't know behind closed doors what happens when you go into spaces where, the songwriters and other people are telling you, no, not you, not right now. But it's pure speculation. She didn't name names, as classy as she is. But we know she is making a huge statement for this particular genre to have its first Black woman to top the charts. And she is not the only one that has been doing this, right? That's the other thing we need to acknowledge. There have been Black women all throughout the history.
We talked to them,
If they haven't been as widely acknowledged, etc. There have been women putting out beautiful and intriguing and just really sometimes overlooked masterpieces when it comes to this type of music. We got to remember Beyonce is from where? Let's go, Texas.
Come on, Texas, of course.
Came up, also gave some commentary, Miss Tina Knowles, about this is a part of our culture. My cousin who lives in Houston is on the rodeo committee, right? Like Black people and cowboys and Southern and Western or that kind of aesthetic, for whatever reason, that has been kind of robbed of us. When we think about who the first cowboys were, when you start to research who was there on the open ranges, thank God, the first generation of folks who were past enslavement went west looking for freedom, right? That kind of aesthetic, again, has been gentrified, let's say. And now here goes country music, looking at Beyonce yet again, knowing that, she's so powerful with her influence that her putting out this album has actually raised the profile of all Black women and sales. And Spotify has accounted for it, that, she can turn a whole genre on its head. I encourage folks, and we're limited, we're almost out of time, to go look at some of the history. And I've just been researching on the categorization of Black music in our country. Before there was a term called R&B, right? And things that, kind of are, very common to us now. There was something called race music and race records. And that was used by the mainstream culture to describe any type of Black music. If we look at even Billboard in the 80s had I think Prince won it, something called Best Black Artists. Like, it was not even about the style of music. It was about the race of the person. So we've come a long way. Again, go into that research where 1920s, pre-1940s, Black music wasn't even played on what we call mainstream, but white stations. White music was exclusive. And then everything else was race music and race records. And we remember our history when, performances were segregated, where again, you called something terrible and then, you see the imitation by non-Black performers. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that she is trying to it seems as if she is trying to make a statement to take back what is technically a part of our heritage as Americans, as African Americans in specific, and to say, who are you to tell me this is not where I belong, sis? I help invent this. This is a part of my culture, being a Texan. So I think it's a wonderful reclamation of, who she is. And she's not letting any genre define her, let alone any other people tell her. Because remember, when she first put these two songs out, surprise after the Super Bowl, people were saying they shouldn't be played on. There was a whole station that said,
whole thing.
We're not playing it. And then the Beehive, came through and was like, why? Why not? So I think it's interesting that Beyonce in her own way is challenging, what is acceptable for, different types of music and who has authority to be in that space. And I think she's doing an amazing work through this album. I even heard it 10 days ago, y'all. 10 days before. I was like, dang, we just finished Renaissance. I'm tired. But she's back.
Right. 9 days now. Actually, 9 days.
Yes, 9 days.
March 20. Yeah.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
So it's going to be, she's already revolutionized what it is that we think country music is, right? So I think we as also African Americans have to stop this kind of ideation that we don't belong. Yeah. Others have to stop that, but we ourselves have to stop that. I can keep going. I know we're going to run out of time.
Well, let me just throw this out there. First, you talked about the impact, according to Google search trends, between January 1st of 2023 and the present reflect an exponential spike in interest in Black country artists since Beyonce's singles dropped and shifted the spotlight to Black creators in the genre. So she's done that.
The whole
she's done that.
Yes, the whole way.
But she also said in that IG post is that the criticisms I faced when I first entered this genre forced me to propel past the limitations that were put on me. Act 2, which is this album, is a result of challenging myself and taking my time to bend and blend genres together to create this body of work. So this is, as we say, she said, this is not a country album. This is a Beyonce album. So she is putting her spin on a genre. So look, if you listen, if any of, hey, look, she's letting us know I'm putting a bend and a blend on the genre. So that means that we might hear some hip hop on this album.
However she chop it, screw it, whatever she does to it, I'm here for it, because again, the conversation that has kind of emanated from it is already so powerful. That's why, you know, people will say, what has she done? What is she doing? She's moving the culture forward. This is very interesting. Just like the Renaissance album was harkening back to taking back, I guess, the space of them. I don't know what to call the genre now. It slips me, but not house, but different styles of music again that again started specifically in Black, brown, LGBTQ spaces, and now becomes mainstreamed and gentrified so that those spaces no longer represent this music. Come on, folks. So I think it's interesting, and it's a bold and very innovative way to make this a national and international conversation. Like, she has that type of power, right? So I think it's very I'm admirable / I'm admiring her. Sorry, like, but
right.
Admiring, you know, that impact already, and we haven't even heard the music.
It has already. David, you said, did we have this discourse when Billy Ray Cyrus hopped on that Lil Nas X song? We probably did at a smaller scale. I mean, Lil Nas X came into the game as a country with this major song, you know, Old Town Road, which oddly enough was a huge hit among children.
And mainstream too. They was
it hit the mainstream real heavy.
Yeah.
It was, but it wasn't the same scale. It wasn't.
No, they gave him pushback as well, though, and he got
pushed back.
People didn't want it. Is this a country album? Is this? And I don't think until Billy Ray Cyrus came through did it get more acceptance. I'm trying to think of that timeline. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Remember the group Hootie and the Blowfish?
Yes, Darius Rucker. I like him. He's been doing his thing too. People told him he wouldn't make it out without Hootie and the Blowfish as a Black man in country, and he has been doing his thing. So
he's definitely been doing his thing. Let me just throw this out there. Tiz checked in. Tiz, you say, good for Beyonce. I'm just not into country music. And I think that's the other. I think that's the other thing that a lot of us want to know as we wrap up the show. Like, is this? Some people would say that this is an attempt for her to get Best Album of the Year, because we heard what her husband Jay-Z had to say.
Roger, you can't end the show with that now. Come on now, we gotta go with it. Beyonce can do whatever she wants. This is her artistry. She's giving it to the world, right? We can either enjoy it, you can, you know, ignore it. You don't have to like it, but it's her self-expression. So let's be grateful and kind of take it in with an open mind, and then maybe, you know, you might like it. We don't know.
If Beyonce was from New York and not Houston, but she wanted to do a country album, do you think she would have the credibility to do it? Because people act like she's not from Texas. She is literally from Texas.
They have literally rodeos. My cousin keeps telling me, come for the rodeo. It is huge. Like, and Black folks are centered, you know, and the history there with, again, Black cowboys, etc. That's not unusual. That's not an outlying kind of like, you know, side note. People embrace that as a part of their heritage and their history. So, I think it might be a little bit less credible and people might have a bigger issue. But I do think, you know, this is a part of her and how she grew up. So people, remove her from Houston. She's become a global person, but that's, you know, her roots. So I think she's able to draw from that in creating this body of work.
Here's my really quick take. She's an artist. She's always changing. She's always evolving. I think she's at a point in her life, in her musical career, she could just say, look, let me just have some fun with this. Let me try this. Let me try that. Hell, the next act 3 could be hip hop. So it could be act 3. Act 3, she could be playing the flute.
Like Andre 3000. We got to go, Farajii. We over.
All right, let's get it. We got to go, y'all. Hey, look, Suzette, how can people get to catch up on all the things that you're doing? Because you running around South Florida like a chicken with her head's cut off. So talk to us.
Follow me on social, Suzette Speaks. Farajii knows I've been working on doing like an FM dial radio show here locally. I hope to bring that to life sometime soon. In the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. I'm really excited about that, in discussions for that. But follow me, Suzette Speaks, on all platforms. I appreciate you, and great conversation as usual.
Great conversation. I appreciate you, and we look forward to reconnecting with you next week. Thank you, Suzette Speaks.
Thank y'all. Thanks for watching.
Appreciate it. You're welcome. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Make sure y'all do your due diligence. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free at Black Star Network and follow us on social media at Black Star Network. Also follow me, yours truly, Farajii Muhammad at The Real Farajii on IG, at Farajii on the X platform, and at Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. I thank y'all so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, crew. At 6 p.m., hit us up. Be a part of the discussion there on Roland Martin Unfiltered this evening at 6 p.m. And we always appreciate all of y'all for checking in and being a part of that, because I jump in those chats and I see you. And I thank you so much for your continued support of us here at Black Star Network. All right, that's going to do it for me. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon. Peace.